For a couple of quick news updates, if you're a small business locally owned, there are grant opportunities now available throughout Miami-Dade County in select commission districts. If you're looking for an extra support to grow your business, and there's something definitely there for pretty much everybody. So contact your commissioner in local district to see what's available at the moment. And for our thank yous, we wouldn't be on the air without several important people. Right now, we're hosted by the Beacon Council. That's where we live now. We used to be at Miami-Dade County. Thank you very much to Mayor Daniela Levine Cava and Manny Sid at the Economic Development Department. He's the one that also was kind of the spearhead, but like now, the Beacon Council Foundation is the one that's driving us and moving us forward, and we're excited for that partnership. Wells Fargo, got to thank the people with the money. Community News, these folks who house us and host us every week. And I was about to say Tico Casamayor, but definitely shout out to Tico. Grant Miller and Michael Miller. They're the community news directors, and they're the ones who really just provide this space for us to do this every week. So we thank them. And right now, we're just going to jump into our show. And thanks so much for joining us today. Let me do a little, actually did a little reading up on you. Today, we're joined by Ronny Herrera. Did I say that correctly?
Yep.
Founder of Meridian Studio, a video marketing company focused on helping founders and businesses turn expertise into scalable content systems. You spent the last few decades, well, you're not that many.
A little bit more than a decade.
More than a decade. Yeah. Working with disruptive tech companies, including software startups, satellite manufacturers, quantum security teams. Quantum security?
Quantum security, yeah.
They like videos too, I guess.
They need them. It's too complex to understand otherwise.
No, so it totally makes sense. And translating those complex ideas into compelling videos and storytelling. And now you're here today because you stepped in and you're doing your own thing. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on.
I was just going to dive in, like, going from working with, it sounds like many people's dream jobs are working for tech companies or quantum security and other things like that. What made you decide to step out and start your own business?
Well, so I've actually been, I started my business in 2014. So I've been at this for quite a while. And so the way I've worked with all these different types of companies, I've always loved startups. Back in when I was in college, I was president of the Entrepreneurship Club. And so this was around the time of like Vine, if you remember that.
Yes,
and,
definitely.
Yeah, when Instagram and Snapchat were all coming out. So startups were something that we're very interested in, going to startup weekends and hacking away at stuff. That was very fun. And so I started working with startups in that, and I've always been really fascinated with them. And I started working with software companies at first, and then ended up getting into different types of hardware. And eventually I started moving into kind of the ultimate dream for any kid who grows up is working in the space industry. So I started working with the companies that are manufacturing satellites, 3D printing rockets, all kinds of really, really cool, like actual hardware technology. And so
like actual rockets and satellites.
Yeah. And so
that's very cool.
Yeah, it was really awesome. And so moved into that, and now I've kind of transitioned into helping these teams do video internally and launch their own YouTube channels.
That's a big gap and definitely a shift for you. What was that turning point? What was that issue or thing that caught your attention and said, I want to make this shift? Yeah,
so a lot of it really came down to, making these, high-end production videos, right? Involves a lot, and it's very expensive to make these videos. And the frustration that I would run into was that my clients were paying for these videos, were making them, and then they would just put them on the website or maybe share them once. There was no distribution strategy. for the most part. And so these videos that we put all this effort into
Yeah.
would sit on a website and not do
And
much
nobody
for
sees
them,
it.
unless they sent it to someone, right?
Right.
And so I was watching YouTube one day, and kind of it hit me. I was like, wait a second, these videos are just people kind of sitting at a desk, right? And they're sharing their expertise, right? They're helping me solve a problem, and they're getting me to their website, and purchasing stuff, right? And so it kind of clicked for me as like, wait, what if video isn't about cinematic storytelling? What if it's about, helping people solve problems and helping them achieve the outcomes that they want? And that's, over the past bit over a year is when I started making the shift into YouTube, really understanding how that platform works. What are the formats? It's definitely very different from, your hero video that goes on a website.
Right.
But it's very fun to help people actually learn how to do it, learn how to write the scripts, learn how to shoot, learn how to do all this kind of stuff. It's not very difficult. We all learned how to take great pictures, right? So
Right.
kind of the next frontier.
No, and you also have phone and portable little mini
Exactly.
studio in your pocket that makes everything look beautiful for you. But it's not just enough for you, it's not just enough to look great. In the end, it's really about the message actually getting to who needs to see it.
Exactly.
That's interesting. And I love the term, what'd you say, hero, the hero
Yeah.
videos, because I think that in the end, many times we are the hero of our own stories, but
Yeah, exactly.
so I always love that term. And then so moving from these bigger tech companies and organizations that have these huge budgets,
Yeah.
and you shift to smaller companies and small businesses, what was that like? How did you make that transition for you to be able to work at a different scale and size?
Yeah. It's honestly been really fun, right? Because when you're working with a bigger company, there's more hoops to jump through. There's more, I had a video that, took months to get approved because they had to go, up to the government, basically.
Right.
To say, can we show this, piece of a satellite? And so, that's very slow for my tastes. But I understand why it has to be that way, right?
Yeah.
With a smaller company, and typically now I'm working with some, solo founders or people who are, getting their company either off the ground or into the market. It's very exciting at that phase because they aren't usually experts, right? They're starting a company because they have some kind of insight or some kind of process or system or whatever it is, software that they have, spent time developing because they spent a lot of time in that industry. And so helping them to really distill that message and then, put it into videos that are going to help them. Even, some of them haven't even gotten to, filming their first video yet. And, when they hop on a podcast or they hop, go to a conference, they're like, the way we've been able to talk about what we do now has completely transformed.
Right.
And so kind of having that kind of impact at the early stage has always been more fun for me. So yeah, that's how that's been.
And so what are some, are the organizations, because right now, like for you on the business side, you're reaching out and trying to find businesses as well, but I think that there's small businesses and others who do want to have a video.
Yep.
But they don't know where to start. Like, what's the first three things you tell them to start when you step in there for the first time?
Yeah. So I would say that the first thing that you want to do when you're coming up with video is you really got to understand, what type of video should you be making. And most businesses are going to fall into one of two camps. Either you're going to go on social media type videos, vertical videos essentially, or you're going to go onto YouTube long form videos. And so the way that I kind of tell people the shorthand of this is short form, consumption is short form content, right? So if something is like, you buy a product like one time, that might be something you make social videos for, right? If you're going to use this product for, every day, then that's probably going to be long form content because there's a lot of use cases. If you're a local company, if you only sell locally, right, you should be on Instagram or TikTok because that's where your audience is looking for local goods, right? And it doesn't really make sense for you to be on YouTube because you're going to be, the whole point of YouTube is access to the whole world, right? And so if you're not able to take advantage of that, then either focus on, Instagram or TikTok, and then try to expand, try to develop products or services that you can sell, right, nationally or, internationally, digital goods, for example, and then transition to YouTube. But start with the platform that's right for you.
That's the closest to the market that you're trying to reach.
Exactly, right? And so, but if you have a good or a service, especially digital goods, they're perfect for this. Then YouTube is right for you, because YouTube plays a few different roles, right? It helps you get discovered, right? It helps people build trust in you. The magic of YouTube is that you're taking the power of like human conversation, right? And you're scaling that, with the distributive power of the internet, right? So whereas before, I may only be able to have, a one-on-one conversation with you, right, and get this information to you. Now I'm, hundreds of, or thousands, even more, can watch this at the same time and get the same message, right? And so that's extremely powerful. And so, yeah, that's kind of the first step of getting off the ground is deciding what's the right one. I would say the second, a lot of people are like, well, what types of videos do I make? I have a system called the AAA YouTube funnel, which is, you have at the very top, you have your attract videos, right? Which you're going to tell people, you're either going to help people solve problems that are frustrating to them, right? So, if you have, you think of your client, your customers, right? You're going to think of videos that are like, okay, what are the top problems that they're dealing with, right? And then let me help them solve these problems. Or if they're already looking for solutions on something, maybe they want to know like, all right, how do I, fix this process in my business, right? If you know that they're searching for that, that's something that they're actively looking for, you make videos about that as well.
Right.
And then that links them, the end of that video, you tell them, and if you want the full system to this, go watch this video. And that's your longer form video where you guide them through the entire process of getting kind of the high level outcome that your business provides, right? Let's say it's accounting, right? So let's say that your attract video will basically tell them, okay, here's how to, here's how to automate your invoice process, for example, right? Now, that's one thing. Okay, now if you want to see my entire workflow
then you send them to the
next. Your monthly workflow as a business owner that you should do, watch this video. Okay, now that might get you to this longer video that's going to show you the whole process, and they now are able to see, how does this person work? What is their approach to solving my problems, right? And at the end of that video, you tell them, and if you want help with this, right, go to my website.
So you essentially bring the viewer along with you to, in the end, the goal is selling your service, but you help bring them along as opposed to just doing
exactly
one. And just listening to how you're talking about and describing it too, I think that in the end, words matter, right? So how you're getting people to communicate and speak about whatever they're trying to share or promote or sell. What's that process like? I mean, is that something you also do, help in terms of creating the script for them, or like?
Yeah. So the first, I have a 9-step framework that I have, my customers go through in my program, the YouTube Marketing Engine. And the first step is
what's your program called?
It's called the YouTube Marketing Engine. And so that's a 90-day program to launch your channel and launch your first 4 videos and 12 shorts, right? And so the first step of that framework is clarify messaging, because if you don't, know what you're going to say, if you don't have that distilled into something that's like very, very like, easy and memorable and poignant for your customers, then everything else doesn't really matter. And so it's really funny because I tell people that you have to kind of really go deep on this. A lot of people think of, okay, it's just, again, it may be just I'm selling to accountants, let's say, right? If I'm doing that, that's not very deep. That doesn't tell you a lot, right? But when you look at the psychology of them, right? When you start looking at, okay, what are their values? Maybe they prefer not to spend all week working, right? Maybe they like to have a little bit of time off, right?
So you help evolve them as, bring out what makes them as the humans, their personal story, them as individuals, and bring that out more, as opposed to accounting in the specific industry, because in the end, that's what's really going to make them connect with who they're selling to, but then also make it much more interesting to watch, I guess, as opposed to if I just wanted to if I just wanted to understand how to do an accounting ledger,
right?
If people still do that. I don't think people do that anymore. Like, everybody uses spreadsheets, but
right.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that's part of when they go through your YouTube engine program. Mm-hmm. You help them cultivate or develop that.
Yes. And so, the most important part of that process is figuring out what the core frustration that they're going through, right? Because, I'm sure you've talked to many business owners who can get very creative about how they talk about the problem that they solve, or, what's the headline on their website. Everyone wants to be very clever with that, wants to be very kind of like, okay, this sounds cool. And sometimes that ends up going right over their customers' heads. They're like, I don't know what they're really saying here. Right. And so what I tell people is like, what is the actual thing that's frustrating them? Right? What's the thing that's maybe keeping them up at night, or something that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, or maybe every week, or whenever they have to go solve this problem, they keep encountering this frustration.
Right.
That is what you do around. Or
it's not that you need a specific person to help you with your taxes as an accountant, which you may or you may not, but you may want someone to help you do it better, improve the process. You actually get a better return.
Right.
Or you don't want to get audited by the IRS, so you focus on some of the bigger. Gotcha.
Yeah, so a video might be like, how to do your, this monthly workflow, but then at the end of the video, you might be like, but if you don't want to spend time doing this, you want this done for you, right? Then do this. If you look up content in Google Ads, for example, that's exactly what you're going to see. You're going to see people who tell you exactly how to do Google Ads.
Right.
And then they're going to tell you, if you don't want to worry about this, you can just hire my company.
Just call me.
Right. And now you trust me because you see how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Right. But you just saved all this time and money.
And sometimes just seeing the actual process and going through what it actually takes to do it, and then you're like, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, and you help spell that out in those videos for them. Why did you? Well, this is also more of a question. It sounds like you focus more on YouTube as opposed to Instagram or TikTok.
Right now I'm focusing on YouTube. That's kind of the one that I'm mastering, though I'm quickly seeing how there's going to be more of a need for Instagram and TikTok and all those other
that's
platforms.
What I found interesting. I was curious, like, why? Like, why would, because everyone and their dog has an Instagram account.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of longer form on Instagram as well. Why did you choose YouTube over Instagram?
So for me, I've been a consumer of YouTube as long as it's been around. It's been a platform that I've always kind of wanted to get on. And when I think the reason for me is that I have personally used it a lot to solve problems in my business and to educate myself as a business owner. And everyone's used it for all kinds of things around the house, all kinds of stuff. But for me particularly, I have gotten a lot of value out of it, in terms of business education. And so when I kind of decided which direction am I going to take my company, right? It made sense for me to focus on long form. I'm making a documentary. I just love long form type stuff. So that format is more native to me. And Instagram and all those stuff, they're very cool. They're different. Now that I understand a lot more about YouTube, how it works, there's a lot of very similar principles. Yeah, it's very, and like you're right, it's not 15-second videos anymore.
No,
they're longer. They're way longer.
And I think that's also the interesting part where, a lot of the other platforms focus on the shorter part. YouTube was always available for longer and it's kind of stayed that way. And a lot of the other social media platforms are starting to evolve to allow for longer form.
Yeah, they are.
Which I find interesting. And so for you, it was just really more, this is the medium, doing longer form content was a much more what you were interested in doing.
And it's a platform that I don't think the B2B world has gotten into quite as much yet. And that's what kind of interested me was really...
If there's much video as there are on YouTube, you still don't think businesses are really on there?
Absolutely not. Yeah, because, there are so many types of businesses and problems out there that people are facing. And, whereas it's really easy to do an Instagram video, right? Anyone can pick up their phone and make one. So the barrier to entry is very low. But YouTube, the barrier to entry is pretty high, right? You need, and most people want to have a camera, good lighting, audio.
Also, like a setup.
Yeah,
so
you want a
need
whole
equipment
setup.
and to get, okay.
Right. And so, and also like it's long form and it's a whole different format. And so that creates this whole mental barrier that people aren't really crossing yet. And businesses don't really know what to do with it. And so me, with the types of clientele that I've been working with, I saw that the best place that they needed to go to was YouTube, that was the next right evolution for them if they want to start bringing in more inbound opportunities, if they want to start attracting more talent, if they want to grow their brand and say, this is what we stand for, this is the type of work that we do, then releasing content regularly on YouTube and cutting them up into social media clips, that go into all those other platforms.
Use YouTube as that foundation, create the bigger, longer form,
Correct.
and then use that to chop it up to
because
social media.
If I make a YouTube video, that can turn into a blog post, right? That can also turn into a newsletter. That can turn into a few clips of social. And because you're going deep, right? Whereas a lot of these other ones, you're kind of forced to go very short, very shallow, because that's just the nature of a place where you're just scrolling. People just want a quick hit of dopamine and then they move on to the next thing. YouTube is like, you're there for some depth, right? Like you see a video, you're like, that looks good, that looks interesting. I'm going to watch this for at least, a few minutes, right? And so thinking about that is what got me excited about YouTube and always wanted to learn it. I have, as someone who is, into filmmaking, I'm making my own documentary about Bitcoin. That's why I moved out here to Miami, actually. And, I've always wanted to get into YouTube for that. And so I was like, let me learn the business side of this as I start making a more personal project into YouTube. So it kind of all just came together.
It was interesting. Actually, so as part of what surprised you about the business of, because you already have the skill set and ability for creating the films and other things like that. What surprised you about the business side of
YouTube?
Of creating, well, just for yourself as a small business, because you're a small business owner now, but then also, I guess, the business end of both. Yeah.
I think what surprised me was the depth of expertise that I had to share. I think that, and that's something that, like, I'm helping all my clients realize, because they think like, what do I talk about? What do I say? What do I make?
Yeah.
That everyone's kind of like stuck there, this kind of like writer's block. And then you start realizing, oh my gosh, like there's teeming with ideas. I have all these things that I could share that people find valuable. That I think has been like very surprising for me. I didn't expect it to flow that much. Does that answer your question, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then, did you, when you're working with these individuals, did you come up with a process to help? Just working with folks is that would help you decide to create a process to get those things out of individuals to kind of.
Yeah. So in the first step of the process, and the clarifying your messaging portion of it, as you dive into the problems that they're facing and the outcomes that they would really like to achieve, that's where you start really kind of, honing in on, okay, they're going to want videos on these topics. This is going to be what they make. And then actually, I'll tell you what the most surprising part was for me so far. I did not expect for titles and thumbnails to be as important as they are. Because they're actually, once you get through the initial, I'm creating the strategy of my YouTube channel, the first part of creating a YouTube video is actually creating the title and the thumbnail.
Yeah.
And this was something that was like the last thing that I would think about.
I've heard this many times, and it always surprises me, like Mr. Beast and other folks, and they spend so much time and money doing different iterations to find the right one. And that surprised me too. I didn't realize that it was that important.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it's the first thing that they'll see, right? And so it's kind of the thing that that they will see, and they'll decide, is that interesting to me or not, right? And so what I tell people to make, and this is where you start getting all these ideas, because once you understand how titles and thumbnails work, you're like, oh my gosh, this is easy, right? I can come up with ideas all day, right? And so the way they work is that you need to basically induce curiosity and promise something impactful to the viewer, right?
You still got to give them the hook to get the people's attention.
Exactly, but they need to, it's not enough to say, oh, like, here's the solution to this problem, right? And give it to them right there in the title. That's why things can sometimes feel like clickbait, because they're kind of goading you, telling you, come watch this thing, right? What is this? What is the secret to this? And so people have to know. And so it's really funny how, like, when you're making, it's not how you think that business content should work, to kind of introduce this, this storytelling sort of trick that you see on social media. People, that's not native to people. And so that has been very surprising, in how much, creating a title. I had one of my videos that was successful was called, if founders understood this, they'd get on YouTube tomorrow. So it's like, what is it that they would understand?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But the impact that they're being promised is like, this is so important for their business that if they knew it, they would hop on this right now. Right. And so, learning to make really good titles and thumbnails, from that, you'll make a good video, right? Because if that sounds really interesting to watch, then you're going to be able to make a really interesting video out of that.
That's funny. You mentioned it earlier, like, everybody's on Instagram, everybody has a cell phone. How do you convince somebody who doesn't think they need you or a producer or someone with a video or skill sets that you have to make a video? Like, I can do it myself. Like, what do you say to those folks?
Yeah, you should do it yourself. That's what I help people do, is learn how to make these yourself, because it became clear to me, and then the deeper I got, the more clear it became to me, that this is something that a business owner should learn to do themselves, because it's too costly to have an external agency, or to have someone do it at the scale that you need to do it.
It's interesting.
Yeah, because ideally you're doing a YouTube video every week, and if you do it right, that should only take you about 3 hours a week of work.
Yeah.
Right. It's because you're developing. I teach people to shoot once every 4 weeks, and so in that 3 week period, you're just coming up with titles and thumbnails, and then developing an outline, turning that into a script. And then on the 4th week, you film, right? So you're only spending 3 hours a week. You have an editor, right, who is going to edit for you. And that's it. That's your team, right? And from there, you're just kind of coming up with these ideas. And so the gear has gotten so cheap, right? That was the reason I got into filmmaking, in 2014, was because, the DSLR style cameras had just come out. And I was on Vimeo watching all these, and I was like, oh my God, these are amazing. These are like little movies that you can make. And so that got me into filmmaking, because the equipment had gotten so cheap. Now it's even cheaper.
Yeah, I was going to say it's even cheaper now. And there's still like a lot of great equipment out
it's
there.
Incredible. And so you can spend literally
and
everything
it really does
you
make
need.
a difference too.
It makes all the difference,
in
yeah.
the quality of like what you shoot. And I used to have my daughter used to do photography, and she had a Canon, and we thought that was a great camera. And then we ended up getting like the Sony A7, the smaller, more
Yep.
And I was like, but it's so small. And you just kind of get sold on the size but the smaller Sony A7, one, it was just so much easier to carry, so much more compact, and it was cheaper, but it still shot such great video and other things like that. But that was the end of my learning curve, because I wasn't trying to become a filmmaker. But it is interesting you mentioned how important some of those things are. So for you, like you really do focus on educating and informing the individuals and businesses so they can start doing it themselves. You're not really just trying to say, hey, you have to be codependent on me.
Right. Yeah, you should, because the gear only costs $1,500, right? You're going to spend around $1,500, buying a camera that comes with a lens. You need, a light or two. You need a microphone, and you're good, right? Some tripod and a teleprompter, right? That's the other part that you need. You need a little teleprompter.
I could definitely use one of those sometimes.
Yeah, it's definitely foreign. It's not easy. It definitely feels kind of funny. You're like, am I a news anchor or something? But that takes the pressure off of, because YouTube is about removing friction, right? You are trying to make it as easy as possible for someone to learn whatever you're trying to teach them. And so you don't want to sit there and kind of, be thinking on the fly about what that is. You want to, just how if you're going to present, at a conference or something, you would want to think through what you're going to say and really rehearse it. And so it's the same idea there. You want to have a very, very tight messaging. You want to, think through that very well. And that will make it much more valuable than just coming up with stuff.
And working with you and creating that process really just helps cultivate that skill and the ability to write a solid script and get the message out and synthesize it in a way that actually makes sense and gets the message to who you want to see it. What do you tell the businesses or individuals who say there's just so much noise or so many videos on YouTube? No one's going to see what I'm producing anyway.
So the thing for that is to go research yourself, right? Like look into your own, niche and see who's making videos, right? And the thing about it, the reason it's so important to dive deep on your ideal customer profile and really understand, what are their values, what do they care about, what is it that I care about, right? As a business owner, why do I do things the way I do them? What's important to me is because people are going to resonate with you. People are going to resonate with different people, right? They're going to connect with different people. And so, you can have 2 different YouTube channels selling the same product, but I'm going to connect with one of them better than I'm going to connect with the other one. And that's the nice thing about YouTube is that it's a market where these titles and thumbnails are competing, right? And the thing about the YouTube, recommendation engine is that they are always trying to get your video to a wider audience. They're trying to test it, and they're trying to see, okay, would a wider audience resonate with this? And then they start finding, okay, this kind of person who watches this kind of videos wants to see this. And so you can break through, right? You can break through, and it doesn't take, a lot of people think that, I need to have hundreds of thousands or millions of views for YouTube to be successful. In reality, when you do the math, and YouTube is only math when it comes down to it, like all internet marketing, right?
That's true.
Conversion rates and all that stuff. When you make the calculation, you'll find that, for a lot of people, you'll get a meeting out of YouTube for every 1,000 to 5,000 views, which isn't a lot, especially as you start, producing more and more videos. So it's.
And that's a higher return than Instagram and others as well in terms of ROI, return on that investment of time. The thing that you're doing when you're on YouTube is that, normally those kinds of conversations, you'd only be having them in a sales context or a networking context. These are, you're getting ideas through to people that they would normally not be thinking about and that you would normally not have the opportunity to share. And so when you have them in a long form sort of format, you're giving the opportunity for them to get that message anywhere, anytime on their, schedule. And so that's why, and then you're able to cut those up into short videos and then put them on Instagram and on LinkedIn and all those platforms and tell people, if you want to watch the full video, go click this link, right? Yeah. And so you're able to be very efficient about your content creation and YouTube kind of be the main thing that you do for content. 3 last questions for you.
Yeah.
What are 3 things you see people do on YouTube that just make you want to pull your hair out? You're just watching, you're like...
That's an interesting question.
Or mistakes or other things like...
Yeah, I think, bad thumbnails, I would say.
Again, with the thumbnails, okay.
Yeah, I see a lot of people, and, they're typically the high-end produced videos. Yeah, that get terrible.
They focus
thumbnails.
On a great video,
well, they don't put anything in the thumbnail.
And they have a terrible thumbnail. So.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
And so the whole effort is kind of wasted. And so that to me like bothers me. I'm like, you have a beautiful video, you put all this work in it, you didn't design a good thumbnail, you just picked a screen grab from the video that doesn't tell you anything, doesn't make you interested in clicking on that video. So that would be probably one of the top ones. One that's not particular to YouTube that definitely grinds my gears is don't post a video to social media unless you put captions into the video. Like the video itself needs to have captions because 90%, like literally look this up, it's 90% of people are watching videos on social media with the volume off. And so it's the same thing. I'll see people post
no, you're right. Because sometimes
video.
I'll just watch or I'm scrolling through a thing. I don't have the volume on.
Yeah.
And then so you'll be there watching for several seconds or even longer. And because the visual cuts you, but yeah, you don't know what they're saying.
Right. Right. And so you need to have that. The other thing is to just understand. I see people making content and they don't understand dopamine loops. Right. And so this concept of understanding dopamine loops, I think, is what unlocks like good videos. It's something I kind of discovered along the way because...
So for those of us who don't know what dopamine loops are...
Yeah, so the dopamine system is why you scroll Instagram, why you scroll TikTok.
That's the crack. That's
why,
yes.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you're kind of
so
like...
So where's the loop part come in?
So this is the reward system of the brain, right? And so the reward system of the brain works like this. You say, okay, you get a cue for something. Like let's say, let's look at Tom and Jerry, right? You smell the pie on the windowsill. The little scent is going across and, oh my God, I smell a pie. Now, the next part is the craving, right? Now you want that thing. So you have cue and then you have craving and you want this thing. So you're going to take an action. That's the next part. And then get the reward, right? You get the reward and that reinforces it. Right, so that feels good. The reward feels good, and then your brain is reinforced. Says, okay, next time I get that cue, I'm going to keep doing that. And so, what happens when you're on social media is that the hook promises you something that you want.
Yeah.
Right. So you see this. Oh, like what happens? Right. Yeah, we just got to see what happens. Right. And so you watch it, you get the reward, it feels good, and then okay, next one. Right. And so that behavior is reinforced. And so if you want to make good video content, and this works on all platforms, is you have to learn the structure of dopamine loops, which is just you offer someone something that they want, and then you give them that, right? It could be some kind of business insight, some promise, like something that they don't know that they want, some kind of system, the solution to a problem, anything really. You promise them that, you give them that information, that feels good. And as soon as you do that, you open the next one, right? And so, might be the next part. Now that I give you that, now you're wondering, how do I do this part, right? And so you jump into that. And so you keep people engaged like that. And so once that's kind of one of the biggest kind of unlocks, I think. If you learn that, and it's not very difficult, you can make amazing videos.
Got it. So what are you watching on YouTube?
I am watching
channels.
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of podcasts, a lot of news.
I've been doing the same thing too. Like there's a lot of things like I used to listen to on Spotify. I've been watching them on YouTube as well. So almost like another cable type of network that YouTube is becoming in some outlet for me. Yeah.
You know that YouTube has more users. It's the biggest streaming platform. It has more users than all of the other streamers combined.
Combined?
Yeah, like Netflix.
That's crazy.
All of them. 2.7 billion users. 60% of them are on there every day for an average of 30 to 45 minutes.
6 billion?
No, 2.7 billion.
2.7.
Yeah. A sizable chunk of the entire planet is watching YouTube, at any given point in the day. And so it's pretty wild. What was your question before that?
No, what channels do you?
Yes.
You
what
answered
channels?
it, just like podcasts and different things like that.
For me, I love learning, and so I'm looking at stuff. if I'm trying to like get away, right? One of the things that people like to do with, video or social media is some kind of escape, right?
Yeah.
So I watched this channel called Epic History that has these like really nerdy videos on
I've watched those too.
historic battles or like this like ship from like the 1800s. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. So it's either that, it's some kind of news content, or business stuff. I've been watching a lot of Alex Hormozy lately. I watch obviously, and I learn. I'm kind of like scanning for what people are doing that works. As well. So,
and as part of that, I was just curious, like, where do you see things going in the next year or 5?
I think that a lot more businesses are going to get on YouTube in the next few years, because I think people have kind of figured out social for the most part, but YouTube is kind of the next frontier for a lot of businesses, and
it's still that open. Like, you really don't think that many businesses.
It's not that saturated. Yeah, because
really? That's interesting.
Because again, people think that you're trying to make cinematic storytelling. That's not what you're trying to do on YouTube. Right? What you're trying to do on YouTube is make videos that are for a very specific type of person, and helping them solve problems and achieve things that they want to do.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of, businesses that have this like very obscure problem that they solve, nobody's making content for that. Nobody's making a long form video for that. So the exact opposite is true. A lot of businesses have so much opportunity because no one is making content for that type of person. Right? And so it's a huge opportunity. So I think that more and more businesses are going to get on YouTube. More and more people are going to learn how to do it, because it's not very difficult. You're just taking your expertise and you're packaging it up and putting it, you're telling people at the end of the video, or at a certain point through the video, go do this. And then they do it. And so it's just, people are going to do it because they kind of need to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing that. I was going to say, one, you should totally, if you haven't yet, you should totally register with the Strive 305.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hub, because everything you're offering would be definitely a great resource. Even some of the frameworks and processes that you outline, I think would definitely be useful for a ton of businesses. I actually took a couple notes myself. And where do people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on youtube.com. I think it's /Ronny, RONNY -Herrera. Or just look up Ronny, RONNY, Herrera, HERRERA on YouTube, and you'll find me. You can watch, I have videos on there that teach you, my 9-step framework on how to launch a channel and how to make videos.
I'll have to go look for that.
Yeah, so it's all there. My business is called Meridian, and so on Instagram, it's Meridian_TV. You can find me there. I'm more active on YouTube, and on LinkedIn also. I'm pretty active on there. So again, Ronny Herrera, look me up there. Those are my most active channels.
Awesome.
And my website is www.meridian.studio.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and insights. And anyone out there who needs some work on YouTube, or just trying to figure out how to get their business on YouTube, now you know where to go find it. Meridian, what is it?
.studio.
Meridian.studio. That's our show for today, and we'll see you next time. Stay caffeinated, stay curious, and have a good day.